everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest new album Spotlight. This is the show where I give a spotlight on a brand new album in progressive rock or a related genre and recommend it to you guys because I think you might like it if you like the same kind of music I do. So I just basically give a brief description of the album and what it sounds like to see if it would be of interest to you guys, and then let you guys off to go check it out of your own free will, and hopefully you guys will check out some of these things that I have for you and find something fun and interesting. That's really what I'm going for here. So thank you guys so much for joining me. And today I have a really cool, more obscure prog album that I've really been enjoying and loving and listening to, right up my lane of the type of artists I tend to like and promote on this channel. The band's called Tritop and the album's called Rise of Kassandra. This is an Italian prog group founded in 2006, but this is actually their debut in 2023, so it's taken a while after their founding to come out with a debut album. And what a debut album it is. I think it's quite fun. It really is evocative of some of my heroes from the newer prog era, like Spock's Beard, Flower Kings, Neil Morse, even a bit of Haken and Dream Theater and a bit of the heavier sections, but it's not very much leaning into that metal sound. It's much more centered in the retro prog style, and also harkening back, of course, to the influences of those bands, such as Gentle Giant, Yes, Genesis. All of that can be heard in the makes also. So definitely a band after my own heart that has a lot of the same influences in music that I do and that I love in my taste. It reminds me a bit of the album that came out last year from Jonas Lindberg and The Other Side, very much inspired by the same pool of artists, I think, in this more retro prog vein and this more modern movement of that sound, and a bit of fun and lightness and enjoyability. There's some good melodies and good writing throughout the course of the album that really make it stand out to me amongst just other generic progressive rock. So I really love it. And there could be an argument to be made, and I'm sure other reviewers will make it, as that they're leaning a bit too hard on their influences, perhaps. You know, do they not have enough of their own unique character? There's even moments that there's certain sections that almost feel lifted from other prog tracks. If you're a big prog aficionado, there's a section in the first track that's very reminiscent of The Truth Will Set You Free by the Flower Kings, almost note for note in a lot of ways. And then in the final epic track, there's some bits that sound very close, if not exactly alike, to Octavarium by Dream Theater. So some people might be a little bit bothered by that, and that they're leaning too heavily on their influences and not putting their own unique stamp. I think it's a bit more of a homage to some of their favorites, and that they're really celebrating the artists that lifted them up and that they learned their craft from, in a sense. So I don't find it to be much of a bother. I've talked a bit about this with some other bands recently, like Crown Lands, who lean heavily into their Rush influences, and a band like Greta Van Fleet that leans heavily into Led Zeppelin influence. I think this is a band that just leans heavy into their love of retro progressive rock from the late 90s into the 2000s, and why not? I love that era as well. So it's a really well-constructed album in terms of what you expect from just a classic prog album. You get this opening shorter epic called Rise of Kassandra, the opening track, or the title track rather, and it starts in a very playful Spock's Beard kind of way with a extended proggy instrumental opening. Then we get this moment of solo piano and vocals coming in, almost like a Neil Morse style, with fairly dramatic vocals, and it builds and builds into a section, like I said, that's very close to The Truth Will Set You Free by the Flower Kings. Some great guitar soloing on top of a driving beat and backing proggy keys. I'm almost reminded also of some other younger prog bands like the Brock Project and Sky Architect that also do this sort of sound, a really light and fun progressive rock sound. There's some slower sections with some Spanish guitar. We get some cosmic keyboards and swirling synths leading to more epic guitar solos. It's just an extended track of all that prog goodness that you could expect from a young band like this. That leads into two shorter tracks called Delighted Insanity and Island of Servitude, and they pretty much sound like classic Spock's Beard numbers to me. Like, they have really good melody and good groove to them. They're more positively and fun tinged, you know, and some great instrumental sections to really display their chops with some cool drumming and instrumental interplay. Delighted Insanity almost makes me think of like Spock's Beard makes with Haken, with even a bit of Yes flavor coming through towards the end. And Islands of Servitude has a bit more of a breezy groove and a jazzy vibe in that retro prog style. Thinking of bands like Styx and Kansas even come to mind in this construction. But then we reach the big epic, which is where they throw everything at the wall and just showcase all of their chops all at once. Begins with even a bit of a Gentle Giant style vocal counterpoint as we start into it, which of course Spock's Beard and Neil Morse led projects are known for as well. And then we get into that retro prog instrumental style. A clear shift comes in the music with a heavy beat and more strained dramatic vocals and a quirky, almost Baroque inspired guitar line. Through this part, we get some stop and start musical moments that tease a bit of a heavier direction from the band. You know, they lean a little bit into this more Dream Theater Haken progressive metal section towards this part, and we get a darker buildup with some cool bass work and twisted keyboards and guitars. Really cool drum work. Some high-pitched vocals come in later in the track, almost like an 80s hair metal band. And then we're flying by with some really cool prog workouts and great guitar soloing. There's even sections that remind me of like Emerson, Lake and Palmer and have some Keith Emerson type keyboard wizardry. And like I said, an ending section that's not unlike Dream Theater's Octavarium, leading to an epic conclusion with a majestic theme, passionate vocals, and soaring guitars. So a really cool, tight album. It's a little over 45 minutes long. Starts with the shorter epic, has 2 shorter tracks in between, and then a 23-minute epic at the end with the Sacred Law of Retribution. It's a bit of a concept album. It tells an interesting story, but it really leans into that 70s symphonic prog, but really flavored with the more neo-prog styles of those other bands that I mentioned, like Spock's Beard, Flower Kings, Neil Morse. So if you're into that sort of scene, I think this is well worth checking out. You can decide for yourself if you feel it's a bit too derivative of those style bands, and if those sections are too jarring for you, where they really lift from some of the other prog songs from the late 90s, early 2000s era. But I just had a ton of fun with it. I think this is a promising young band that play really well, that sound really good. You know, some of the production is a little bit on the amateur end of the spectrum, but that's to be expected from a young band that's more independent-minded. And it's just a fun time, and I would recommend it to all prog fans who like that sort of retro prog, akin to Spock's Beard, Flower Kings, Transatlantic, all of that good stuff. So thank you guys for joining me. Hopefully there's something here for you guys to check out, and I would really urge you to support the artist if you like what you hear. And I'm really grateful for you guys checking this channel out and checking out my review. And so thank you guys, and just go out and enjoy the music, whatever you got going on. Thank you guys. Bye, everybody.